A group of teenage girls spot an elderly woman in a MAGA hat while sitting in the park. They can't resist mocking her, taking their jokes too far. But what starts as a cruel prank takes an unexpected turn when they learn the heartbreaking truth about the hat and realize someone's been recording them all along. What happens next will leave you speechless. Here is Act 1 expanded into 1,500 words, with a detailed setup of the scene, characters, and dynamics to draw readers in and evoke curiosity and emotion. Act 1, Introduction. The scene is set. It was a crisp autumn afternoon in the town's central park, where golden leaves floated lazily to the ground, carried by a gentle breeze. The park, usually a place of serenity and laughter, was abuzz with chatter from small groups, scattered across the benches and open lawns. Among them was a group of 4 teenage girls, seated together on a bench near the fountain, laughing over something on one of their phones. "Look at this filter." One of them giggled, holding her phone up so the others could see. "Doesn't this make me look like a celebrity?" Her friends leaned in, roaring with laughter, their carefree voices blending with the distant chirping of birds. The girls, each clad in trendy jackets and sneakers, exuded the kind of energy that only teenagers could, the kind that suggested they were invincible, untouchable, and unaware of the deeper currents in life beyond. Their bubble of jokes and selfies across the paved path. Sitting on another bench beneath the sprawling branches of an oak tree was an elderly woman. Her silvery hair was pinned neatly under a vibrant red MAGA hat, its bold white letters gleaming in the sunlight. She sat quietly, a hardcover book open in her lap, its corners slightly dog-eared. Her lined face was serene, her eyes occasionally flickering up from the pages to observe the passers-by before returning to the words in front of her. She seemed out of place amid the youthful energy of the park, a solitary figure of calm in a sea of noise. It didn't take long for the group of girls to notice her. It wasn't the book or the woman herself that caught their attention, but the hat. The bright red cap stood out against the earthy tones of the park, a beacon that practically demanded to be acknowledged. One of the girls, Lisa, nudged her friend Jasmine with an elbow, a sly grin spreading across her face. "Look at that," Lisa said in a low voice, nodding toward the woman. "She's actually wearing a MAGA hat in public." The other girls followed Lisa's gaze, their expressions shifting from mild curiosity to barely concealed amusement. Jasmine smirked and whispered back, "She probably thinks it's still 2016. The girls giggled, their voices carrying just loud enough to drift over to the woman's bench. She didn't look up, her eyes still fixed on her book, though the faintest flicker of a smile played at the corners of her mouth. If she had heard the man, she showed no sign of annoyance. "Do you think she's one of those conspiracy nuts?" Mia, another girl in the group, chimed in, her voice dripping with mock seriousness. "Like, does she think lizard people are running the government or something?" "I bet she does," Lisa replied, barely able to suppress her laughter. "And I bet she has a bunker full of canned food somewhere." As the girls' laughter grew louder, the elderly woman finally glanced up, her eyes meeting theirs briefly. She didn't frown or glare, as one might have expected. Instead, she simply offered them a small, almost grandmotherly smile, as if to say, "I see you, but I won't engage." Then, just as quietly, she returned her gaze to her book. Her reaction or lack thereof only fueled the girls' amusement. They took her calmness as a sign of weakness, an invitation to push further. Jasmine pulled out her phone and discreetly aimed it in the woman's direction. "Okay, guys, say cheese," she whispered, angling the camera to include the woman in the background. "I'm about to make the best meme ever." Lisa leaned over to peek at Jasmine's phone screen, grinning as Jasmine snapped the picture. Caption it something like, "Live footage of MAGA grandma in her natural habitat," Lisa suggested. The girls laughed harder, and Jasmine's thumbs flew across her screen as she uploaded the picture to her social media account. Within seconds, her post began gathering likes and comments, most of them echoing the girls' mockery. Emboldened by the online validation, the girls decided to take things a step further. Mia, always the boldest of the group, stood up and dusted off her jeans. "I'm gonna go talk to her," she announced, her tone daring anyone to stop her. "What are you gonna say?" Jasmine asked, her eyes wide with anticipation. Mia shrugged, a mischievous glint in her eye. "I don't know. Something funny. Just watch." She strutted across the path toward the woman's bench, her sneakers crunching against the fallen leaves. The elderly woman didn't look up as Mia approached. She kept her gaze on her book, the faint rustle of its pages the only sound she made. "Excuse me," Mia said, her voice dripping with mock politeness. "I couldn't help but notice your hat. It's bold." The woman glanced up, her expression unchanged. "Thank you," she replied softly, her voice calm and measured. "I suppose it is." Mia tilted her head, pretending to examine the hat more closely. "Do you, actually believe in all that stuff? You know, all the conspiracy theories and fake news?" The woman met Mia's gaze steadily, her eyes kind but unyielding. "It's just a hat," she said simply, before returning to her book. Mia hesitated, caught off guard by the woman's composure. For a moment, it seemed as though she might walk away. But then, the sound of her friend's laughter from the bench spurred her on. She turned back to the woman with a smirk. "Just a hat, huh?" Mia said, her voice louder now, meant to carry back to the others. "Seems like a weird choice for someone who's supposed to be old and wise." The woman didn't respond. She flipped another page in her book, her calmness an almost defiant contrast to Mia's brashness. From the bench, Jasmine, Lisa, and the others watched with bated breath, their phones ready to capture whatever happened next. Jasmine called out, "Ask her where her rally is." Mia grinned and turned back to the woman. "Yep, where's your rally, Grandma? You gonna march around the park with a sign or something?" The girls erupted into laughter, their voices echoing across the park. A few nearby onlookers turned to see what the commotion was about, but most people quickly looked away, unwilling to intervene. The elderly woman sighed softly and closed her book, her fingers lingering on its cover. She looked up at Mia again, her expression unreadable. For a moment, it seemed as though she might say something. But then she simply shook her head and stood, with a slight adjustment of her hat. She tucked the book under her arm and began walking away. Mia blinked, surprised by the woman's sudden departure. "Hey, where are you going?" she called after her. "We're not done talking to you." The woman didn't respond. She walked slowly but steadily down the path, her figure growing smaller as she moved farther away. Mia turned back to her friends, throwing up her hands in mock exasperation. Can you believe her? She just walked away. Guess she couldn't handle the truth. Jasmine and Lisa burst into laughter, their phones still aimed in Mia's direction. "You should have gotten her to say something crazy," Lisa said, shaking her head. "That would have gone viral for sure, unbeknownst to the girls." A middle-aged man sitting on a bench nearby had been watching the entire exchange. His phone, held casually in his lap, had been recording everything. He remained silent, his expression unreadable, as the girls returned to their bench, laughing and congratulating themselves on their antics. The man glanced down at his phone, replaying the video he had just captured. His jaw tightened as the girls' mocking voices filled the screen. Without a word, he stood, slipped his phone into his pocket, and began walking in the direction the elderly woman had gone. The girls settled back on their bench, still giggling over the encounter with the elderly woman. Jasmine scrolled through the comments on her post, reading them aloud for the others' amusement. "Look at this one," she said, her voice high with glee. "MAGA grandma needs to take her conspiracy theories back to the nursing home. Classic." Lisa leaned over, laughing so hard she had to clutch her stomach. "People are savage. Let me see." She grabbed Jasmine's phone, swiping through the growing list of comments. The post was already gaining traction, with dozens of likes and replies pouring in. But their triumph was short-lived. Just as they were reveling in their online success, a voice called out from across the path, "Wow, this is what you do for fun." The girls turned to see the elderly woman, who had stopped a few feet away. She was looking at them, her face calm, but tinged with something that could only be described as sadness. She stood with her hands clasped in front of her, her book tucked under one arm. For a moment, no one spoke. The girls exchanged awkward glances, unsure how to respond. It was Jasmine who broke the silence, rolling her eyes and crossing her arms. "You came back? Thought you were done." "I thought so, too," the woman replied, her voice steady. "But I wanted to say something before I left." She paused, glancing at each of them in turn. "You're young. You have so much potential. It's a shame to see you use it like this." Mia let out a scoff, folding her arms. "What's that supposed to mean?" The woman's gaze shifted to Mia, her eyes soft but unwavering. "It means you're better than this. You don't need to tear people down to feel strong. The girls fell silent, unsure how to react. The weight of the woman's words hung in the air, a sharp contrast to the carefree mockery that had filled the park moments before. But then Lisa broke the tension with a sarcastic laugh. Okay, thanks for the life lesson, Grandma. Are you gonna tell us to stay in school next? The woman sighed, shaking her head. I don't expect you to understand. Not yet. With that, she turned and began walking away again, her steps slow but purposeful. Don't worry, we won't. Jasmine called after her, her voice dripping with mock cheerfulness. The girls erupted into laughter, the tension dissipating as quickly as it had come. But as they settled back onto the bench, Lisa's eyes lit up with a mischievous glint. You know what we should do? She said, her tone conspiratorial. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. What? We should really make this go viral, Lisa replied, pulling out her phone. Let's follow her and get her on video. Like, really make her famous. Mia grinned, catching onto Lisa's plan. You mean like a full-blown expose? Crazy MAGA ladies' day out? I love it. Jasmine hesitated for a moment, glancing in the direction the woman had gone. I don't know, she said slowly. She seemed kind of, I don't know, sad or something. Who cares? Lisa shot back. She's the one walking around in that hat. She's asking for it. Jasmine shrugged, her reluctance fading under the weight of her friend's enthusiasm. Fine, she said, but if she starts crying or something, I'm out. The girls stood and began walking in the direction the woman had gone, their phones at the ready. They kept their distance at first, trailing behind her like predators stalking their prey. The woman walked slowly, her shoulders slightly hunched, oblivious to the group following her. They watched as she stopped near the park's edge, where a small playground stood. She sat down on a bench overlooking the swings, her gaze softening as she watched a young boy push his sister on one of the swings. For a moment, the girls hesitated. There was something about the scene, the woman's quiet smile, the sound of children laughing that felt wrong to interrupt. But Lisa wasn't one to back down. Come on, she whispered, motioning for the others to follow. This is perfect. They approached cautiously, their phones held low but recording nonetheless. Lisa was the first to speak, her voice loud enough to catch the woman's attention. So, enjoying the view, Grandma? The woman turned, her expression startled. For a moment, she looked as though she might ignore them. But then she sighed and set her book aside. I thought you girls had better things to do, she said quietly. We do, Mia said with a smirk. But this is just too much fun to pass up. Yeah, Lisa added, stepping closer. We were just wondering, like, do you wear that hat because you think it makes you look cool? Or is it more of a, statement? The woman didn't respond immediately. Instead, she studied the girls, her gaze lingering on each of them as if searching for something. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm but firm. You don't know anything about me, she said, but you think you have the right to judge. The girls exchanged glances, their confidence wavering slightly under the weight of her words. But then Jasmine laughed, breaking the tension. We're not judging you, she said. We're just asking questions. The woman smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. Questions meant to mock, not to understand. There's a difference. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Lisa's face. But she quickly masked it with a grin. Well, if you don't want to answer, that's fine, she said, holding up her phone. But just so you know, you're kind of famous now. The woman's eyes flickered to the phone in Lisa's hand, her expression unreadable. Famous, she repeated softly. Yep, Jasmine said, stepping closer. You're all over social media. Everyone loves a good MAGA meme. The woman was silent for a long moment, her gaze dropping to her lap. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. You think this is funny, she said, but you don't understand what you're doing. Sure we do, Mia said with a laugh. We're making people laugh. Lighten up. But the woman didn't laugh. Instead, she stood, her movements slow and deliberate. She picked up her book, tucking it under her arm, and looked at the girls one last time. One day, she said quietly, you'll realize that kindness is a strength, not a weakness. I hope, when that day comes, you'll remember this moment. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving the girls standing in stunned silence. For a moment, none of them spoke. The only sound was the laughter of the children on the playground, oblivious to the tension that hung in the air. It was Lisa who broke the silence, her voice filled with forced bravado. Well, that was dramatic. Yeah, Mia agreed, though her voice lacked its usual confidence. What's her deal, anyway? I don't know, Jasmine said quietly, her eyes still fixed on the spot where the woman had been. But maybe we should just leave her alone. Lisa scoffed, shoving her phone into her pocket. Come on, don't go soft on me now. She's just some old lady with a dumb hat. Who cares? But as they walked away, none of them could shake the lingering weight of the woman's words. Unbeknownst to them, the man on the nearby bench was still recording, his phone capturing every moment of their interaction. The girls meandered back toward their bench near the fountain, the earlier buzz of excitement replaced by a subtle unease. None of them spoke as they sat down, each scrolling through their phones in silence. The vibrant energy that had fueled their earlier antics seemed to have drained, replaced by a quiet tension. Lisa broke the silence first, her tone a mix of annoyance and forced confidence. Well, that was weird, she said, flicking her thumb across her phone screen. She acts like she's all-wise or whatever, but come on, it's just a hat. Jasmine, who had been unusually quiet, looked up from her phone. Yeah, but did you hear what she said? About kindness and strength? I mean, she wasn't wrong. Lisa rolled her eyes. Please. She's just trying to make us feel bad. And it's working on you, apparently. I don't feel bad, Jasmine said defensively, though her voice wavered. I'm just saying, maybe we went too far. I mean, she wasn't doing anything to us. Mia snorted. Oh, come on. Don't tell me you're buying into her whole wise gram act. She's probably just some crazy old lady who spends her time arguing with strangers online. But she wasn't arguing. Jasmine shot back, her voice rising slightly. She didn't even fight back. She just walked away twice. Lisa sighed, leaning back against the bench. Okay, whatever. If you want to feel sorry for her, that's your problem. I'm not gonna lose sleep over some random old lady. The tension between the girls was palpable, and the conversation quickly fizzled out. They sat in awkward silence, the sounds of the park filling the void. Nearby, a group of children laughed as they chased each other around the fountain, their joy a stark contrast to the unease settling over the bench. Unbeknownst to the girls, the man who had been quietly recording their earlier interaction was now standing a few feet away, watching them with a measured expression. He was middle-aged, with salt-tan pepper hair and a calm but authoritative presence. His phone was still in his hand, the screen dark now, but the recording was safely stored. Clearing his throat, the man stepped closer. Excuse me, he said, his voice firm but not unkind. The girls looked up, startled. Lisa was the first to respond, her defensive instincts kicking in. Can we help you? The man raised an eyebrow. I think it's more a question of whether I can help you. Mia frowned, crossing her arms. What's that supposed to mean? The man held up his phone, the faint glow of the screen catching their attention. I've been watching you, he said simply. And I've been recording. A wave of panic swept over the group. Jasmine's eyes widened, and Lisa's confident facade cracked for just a moment before she forced a laugh. Okay, and what? You're gonna send it to the cops because we talked to some old lady. The man didn't laugh. No, but I might send it to someone else. Or better yet, post it online. How do you think your parents would feel if they saw this? The girls froze, their bravado replaced by genuine fear. Lisa opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Mia, ever the bold one, tried to regain control of the situation. You can't just record us without our permission. That's, like, illegal or something. The man smirked, unimpressed. Actually, it's perfectly legal. You're in a public place. And trust me, I'm not doing this to embarrass you. I'm doing this to make you think. Jasmine, her voice barely above a whisper, asked, think about what? The man's expression softened slightly. About the way you treated that woman. About what it says about you not just to her, but to everyone who might see this video. You might think it's funny now, but someday you'll look back and realize how cruel it was. The girls shifted uncomfortably, avoiding the man's gaze. Jasmine looked like she might cry, and even Mia seemed at a loss for words. Lisa, however, wasn't ready to back down. Look, she said, her voice sharper than she intended. We didn't do anything that bad. We didn't hurt her. It was just a joke. The man's eyes narrowed. A joke? Is that what you call mocking someone for simply existing? Harassing her for wearing a hat? Do you think she walked away from that encounter laughing? Lisa faltered, her confidence finally giving way. We didn't mean to hurt her. But you did, the man interrupted, his voice firm. And now you have to live with that. Before the girls could respond, the man continued. Do you even know why she wears that hat? Do you know anything about her? The girls exchanged guilty glances. Jasmine was the first to speak. No, she admitted, we don't. The man nodded, his expression softening further. She wears that hat because it belonged to her husband. He passed away last year. He was a veteran who served this country for over 30 years. That hat was a gift from him, and is one of the few things she has left to remember him by. The weight of his words hit the girls like a freight train. Jasmine's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes brimming with tears. Even Lisa, who had been so adamant in her defiance, looked utterly shaken. She wasn't wearing it to make a political statement, the man continued. She was wearing it because it reminds her of someone she loved, someone who believed in this country, flaws and all. And you turned it into a punchline. The girls were silent, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Jasmine finally broke the silence, her voice trembling. We didn't know. That's the problem, the man said gently. You didn't bother to know. You saw the hat, and you made assumptions. You judged her without understanding her story. The man let his words linger, watching as the girls processed what he had said. Finally, he lowered his phone and slipped it into his pocket. I'm not going to post the video, he said. Not yet, anyway. But I want you to think about what you did. And if you're really sorry, you'll find a way to make it right. Lisa looked up, her voice small. How? She's gone. The man gestured toward the path the elderly woman had taken. She's not far. You could start by apologizing. Jasmine was the first to stand, her hands shaking slightly. I want to apologize, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Mia and Lisa hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. But Jasmine's resolve seemed to strengthen them, and one by one, they rose from the bench. The man watched them go, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. Good luck, he called after them. The girls found the woman sitting on another bench near the edge of the park, her book open in her lap. She looked up as they approached, her expression wary but not unkind. Jasmine was the first to speak. Excuse me, she said, her voice trembling. We wanted to say we're sorry for how we treated you earlier. The woman studied them for a moment, her gaze softening. Why the change of heart? She asked gently. Jasmine glanced at her friends before answering. Someone told us about your husband, about why you wear that hat. We didn't know. The woman sighed, closing her book and setting it aside. You didn't ask, she said simply. Mia stepped forward, her voice unusually soft. We were wrong. We shouldn't have treated you like that. It wasn't fair. The woman's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but she smiled faintly. Thank you for saying that, she said. It means more than you know. As the girls walked away, their hearts heavy but a little lighter than before. They knew they would never forget the woman or the lessons she had taught them. The man watched from a distance, nodding to himself as he saw the girls' genuine remorse. The turning point was complete not just for the girls, but for everyone who had witnessed the events of the day. The air felt heavy as the girls lingered near the elderly woman's bench, their earlier bravado and laughter long gone. The apology had been said, but the unease remained. The woman, though visibly touched by their words, still seemed lost in thought, her book forgotten in her lap. A quiet tension hung between them, as though something more needed to be said. Finally, Jasmine, unable to stand the silence any longer, spoke up. We really are sorry, she said softly. We didn't know. About your husband, about the hat, we just didn't think. The woman finished for her. Her voice wasn't accusatory, just quiet and tired. She looked at them with a faint smile, but her eyes carried a sadness that seemed to weigh on her entire being. I know, most people don't think before they act, especially when it's easier to laugh than to ask questions. The girls shifted uncomfortably, each grappling with the sting of her words. Lisa, who had been the most defiant earlier, suddenly found herself needing to know more. Can you tell us about him? She asked hesitantly. Your husband, I mean, if that's okay. The woman's expression softened, and for a moment, she simply looked at them, as if deciding whether they were ready to hear what she had to say. Then, with a deep breath, she began. His name was Robert, the woman said, her voice trembling slightly as she spoke his name. We were married for 42 years. He was my best friend, my partner, and the kindest man I've ever known. He believed in hard work, in doing what was right, and in standing up for what you believe in even when it's hard. The girls listened intently, their earlier discomfort fading into genuine interest. The woman's voice grew steadier as she continued, as though the act of sharing her memories brought her strength. Robert joined the military when he was just 18, she said. He served in Vietnam. Then, later in the Gulf War, he never talked much about what he saw over there. But I know it changed him. He lost friends, saw things no one should ever have to see. But through it all, he never lost his faith in people. He always said that no matter how divided we seem, most of us just want the same things: to be safe, to be loved, to have a future for our families. She paused, her fingers brushing the brim of her MAGA hat. When he retired, he devoted his life to helping other veterans. He started a nonprofit to provide housing for homeless vets. He spent every spare moment volunteering, raising money, organizing events. And he wore this hat to every single one of them. The girls exchanged glances, their faces a mix of guilt and awe. "Why that hat?" Mia asked quietly. "I mean, it's just a hat, right?" The woman smiled faintly. To him, it wasn't just a hat. It was a reminder to himself, and to everyone who saw him, that he believed in the promise of this country. He believed in its potential to be better, to do better. He didn't wear it because he hated anyone or wanted to divide people. He wore it because he believed in the power of hope. She looked at them then, her gaze piercing but not unkind. "You saw the hat, and you thought you knew who I was. But you didn't see him, or the life we built together, or the work he did to make this world a little kinder. You judged me for a piece of cloth without ever asking what it meant to me." The girls were silent, the weight of the woman's words pressing down on them. Jasmine wiped at her eyes, her throat tight. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, though the words felt inadequate. "We were wrong. You're right, we didn't ask. We just assumed." The woman reached out, placing a gentle hand on Jasmine's shoulder. "I know you didn't mean to hurt me," she said softly. "But words and actions have consequences, even when we don't intend them to." Lisa, who had been staring at the ground, suddenly looked up. "What happened to him?" she asked. "Your husband, I mean. You said he passed away." The woman's eyes grew distant, her voice trembling again as she answered. "He was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago. They said it was likely from the exposure to chemicals during his service. He fought so hard, right until the very end. Even when he was sick, he kept working, kept trying to help people. That's just who he was." Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. And Mia, without thinking, handed her a tissue from her pocket. The woman accepted it with a grateful nod, dabbing at her eyes. "When he passed," she continued, "he left this hat to me. He told me to wear it, to carry on his work, and to never let anyone make me feel ashamed of believing in something." The girls felt a lump rise in their throats. The hat, which they had mocked so mercilessly, now seemed like a sacred object, a symbol of love, loss, and unwavering hope. They couldn't look at it the same way anymore. The woman's story had cracked something open in each of them. For Jasmine, it was the realization that her words had carried more weight than she'd understood. For Mia, it was the guilt of seeing someone's humanity only after tearing it down. And for Lisa, it was the uncomfortable awareness that her confidence had been built on assumptions and ignorance. "I don't think I can say sorry enough," Jasmine said quietly. "But I want you to know that we're going to think about this, about everything you said." The woman smiled, her sadness giving way to a glimmer of hope. "That's all I ask," she said. "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do to make them right." Lisa hesitated before speaking, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "Is there anything we can do? To help you, I mean?" The woman looked surprised, then thoughtful. "If you really want to help, come to the Veterans Fundraiser this weekend. It's at the community center. We're raising money for homeless vets, something Robert was passionate about. You can volunteer, meet some of the people he helped, and see the difference kindness can make." The girls nodded in unison, their resolve clear. "We'll be there," Mia said firmly, and for once, there was no trace of sarcasm in her voice. As the woman stood to leave, she turned back to the girls one last time. "Thank you for listening," she said. "It means more than you know." "Thank you for telling us," Jasmine replied, "and for giving us a chance to make it right." The woman smiled, adjusted her hat, and walked away, her steps slow but steady. The girls watched her until she disappeared down the path, the weight of the encounter settling over them like a blanket. For a long time, they sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The park seemed quieter now, the laughter of children and chirping of birds muted against the gravity of what they had just experienced. Lisa broke the silence, her voice unusually quiet. "We were jerks," she said bluntly. "I mean, there's no other way to put it. We were complete jerks." Mia nodded. "Yeah, but at least now we know, and we can do something about it." Jasmine, who had been staring at her phone, suddenly looked up. "Maybe we should post something. Not the video, but like an apology, or something about what we learned." Lisa hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, we should. People need to hear her story." Together, the girls began drafting a post, their earlier laughter replaced by a determination to make amends. The post wasn't perfect, but it was honest, a reflection of their journey from mockery to understanding, and a tribute to the women who had changed the way they saw the world. As they hit post, they felt a strange sense of relief. It wasn't enough to erase what they had done, but it was a start. And sometimes, a start was all you needed. The girls arrived at the community center early Saturday morning, their usual chatter replaced by an air of quiet determination. The weight of the past few days still lingered, but their resolve to make amends had grown stronger with each passing hour. They didn't quite know what to expect, but they knew one thing: this wasn't about them anymore. It was about the elderly woman, her husband's legacy, and the lesson they'd learned it too late. The community center buzzed with activity. Volunteers in matching t-shirts moved back and forth, carrying boxes, setting up tables, and organizing materials for the Veterans Fundraiser. A large banner hung across the entrance, reading, "Supporting Our Heroes, Fundraiser for Homeless Veterans." As the girls stepped inside, they spotted the elderly woman near the front of the room. She was busy arranging donation envelopes on a table, her movements slow but purposeful. The MAGA hat sat proudly on her head, its bright red colors standing out against the sea of activity. Jasmine was the first to speak. "There she is," she said quietly, pointing toward the woman. Lisa swallowed hard. "I guess we should go say hi." The walk across the room felt longer than it should have. Each step was heavy with nerves and a deep sense of guilt. When they finally reached her, the woman looked up, her expression momentarily startled before softening into a warm smile. "You came," she said, her voice filled with genuine surprise. "We said we would," Jasmine replied, "and we meant it. We want to help." The woman studied them for a moment, as though searching for something in their faces. Whatever she saw seemed to satisfy her, because she nodded and gestured to the table. "Well, there's plenty to do. Let's get to work." The girls spent the next few hours working alongside the women and the other volunteers. They packed donation bags, sorted canned goods, and helped set up chairs for the event's opening ceremony. It was hard work, but none of them complained. In fact, they found themselves enjoying the sense of purpose and camaraderie that filled the room. At one point, Mia found herself working directly with the elderly woman, organizing a stack of brochures. "So, how long have you been doing this?" Mia asked, her voice tentative. The woman glanced at her, a small smile playing on her lips. "Since Robert started the nonprofit about 15 years ago. He was always the driving force behind it. But I've done my best to keep it going since he passed." "That's incredible," Mia said, genuinely impressed. "I don't know how you do it." The woman paused, her gaze turning thoughtful. "It's not always easy," she admitted. "But when you see the difference it makes in someone's life, a veteran finding a home, a family getting the help they need, it's worth every bit of effort." Mia nodded, her admiration for the woman growing with every word. "I wish we'd known all this before," she said quietly. "Maybe we wouldn't have been so quick to judge." The woman finished, raising an eyebrow. Mia nodded, her cheeks flushing with shame. The woman's smile grew a little wider. "The important thing is that you're here now, and that means more than you know." As the fundraiser officially began, the girls took a moment to step back and observe. The room was filled with people, veterans, community members, and families all gathered to support the cause. A man in a wheelchair gave a speech about how the nonprofit had helped him get back on his feet after years of struggling with homelessness. His words were raw and powerful, leaving the audience in tears. The girls were particularly moved when the elderly woman herself took the stage. She spoke with quiet strength, sharing stories about her late husband's work, and his unwavering belief in the power of kindness. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke, but her message was clear and inspiring. When Robert started this nonprofit, she said, her eyes scanning the crowd, he believed that no one who served this country should ever feel forgotten or alone. He believed in the goodness of people, even when it wasn't easy. And I believe in it too. The room erupted into applause, and the girls found themselves clapping harder than anyone else. For the first time, they truly understood the depth of the woman's resilience and the meaning behind her words. After the ceremony, the girls sat together near the back of the room, their thoughts swirling. Jasmine broke the silence first, her voice filled with emotion. "She's amazing," she said simply. "I can't believe we ever treated her the way we did." "We didn't know," Lisa said quietly. "But we should have. We should have at least tried to understand." Mia nodded, her usual confidence replaced by a rare vulnerability. "I feel like such a jerk. We were so focused on making a joke, we didn't even think about her as a person." Jasmine glanced at the elderly woman, who was now chatting with a group of veterans near the front of the room. "Do you think we can ever really make up for what we did?" "I don't know," Lisa admitted. "But I think being here is a start." Later that afternoon, as the event began to wind down, the girls approached the woman once more. This time, their steps were lighter, their nervousness replaced by a newfound respect. "We just wanted to say thank you," Jasmine said, her voice sincere, "for letting us be a part of this. It's been eye-opening." The woman smiled warmly. "I'm glad you came, and I hope it's been a good experience for you." "It has," Mia said quickly, "and we were wondering if we could keep helping. You know, with the nonprofit. Maybe volunteer regularly." The woman's expression brightened, and for the first time, her smile reached her eyes. I think Robert would have liked that very much. As the girls left the community center that day, they felt a sense of peace they hadn't expected. They knew their actions earlier in the week couldn't be erased, but they also knew they had taken the first steps toward making things right. In the days that followed, the girls kept their promise. They volunteered at the nonprofit regularly, helping organize events, distribute supplies, and even create social media campaigns to raise awareness for the cause. Each interaction with the veterans and community members deepened their understanding of the impact one person or one hack could have. Over time, their relationship with the elderly woman grew stronger. She became more than a figure of quiet resilience. She became a mentor, teaching them about kindness, empathy, and the importance of listening before judging. They learned to see the world through her eyes, and in doing so, they became better versions of themselves. Months later, the girls reflected on how much their lives had changed. What had started as a moment of mockery had transformed into something far greater, a lesson in humanity that had reshaped their perspectives. Lisa, who had always been the most confident, now used her voice to advocate for causes she believed in, speaking out against bullying and prejudice. Mia, ever the bold one, channeled her energy into organizing fundraisers and rallies for the nonprofit. Jasmine, the quietest of the group, discovered a passion for storytelling, using her writing to share the experiences of the veterans she'd met. And the elderly woman? She continued to wear her MAGA hat, unashamed and unwavering. But now, when she walked through the park or volunteered at the community center, she was greeted with smiles and waves not because people agreed with her hat, but because they respected the person behind it. The resolution ties the story together with a sense of redemption and hope. The girl's transformation from mockery to advocacy highlights the power of empathy and understanding, while the woman's strength and forgiveness serve as a reminder that kindness can heal even the deepest wounds. Through their actions, the girls honor her husband's legacy, proving that it's never too late to change and make a difference.